Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video, and it's gonna be the second part of the build diary. Now this is probably day 2 and 3 combined together because I didn't make a video last time. But my character is almost 92 as you can see here, and we have reached the point where I am pretty confident in the character being able to do all the content outside of the Uber bosses. Now, Sanctum has been the biggest problem with the build as it struggled to complete it fully on Bone Shatter. However, I did find a Sanctified Relic. However, this is actually probably the worst Sanctified Relic you could ever hope to get, as it actually lowers my damage because it converts Fizz to fire damage, which is not what you want, especially on an Impale build. Now, the reason why the Sanctum got so much easier is we got some relics. We have a relic that says gain 43 inspiration when you receive an affliction. So overall, Sanctum has gotten a lot easier, and Sanctum is actually going to be even easier in the Gauntlet because the 40% more monster life in this private league mod will not be 40% more. I think it's like 30% or less damage taken or something like that. So it's not going to be as bad, especially early on in the campaign and white maps. So Juggernaut has been the biggest surprise to me. I always knew that Juggernaut was super overpowered. It's super durable, but the build is more or less a tank. I feel extremely tanky, and it really just comes down to armor being super good, especially with the Transcendence node. With some changes in the tree, you can get like 5.2k life, which I would be confident with in just mapping in terms of never really taking that much damage. With the flask up and determination, we have around like 78,000 armor, and then we have 78 res, 77, and you can get all the way up to 80 res. And we're actually almost spell suppress cap, around 93% spell suppression. So overall, everything is looking super good on the defensive side of things. Now, in terms of gearing has been pretty slow. Doing Harvest is probably one of the most unfun experiences I've ever had. I don't really know why they changed Harvest to be so bad, but Harvest feels really awful in SSF. It feels like you barely get any juice because the maps are such low quant and such low pack size. And it's even kind of dangerous in order to like farm a bunch of stuff. It is actually ridiculous how few reforges you actually get nowadays. So before, you could get like 10, 15, 20 reforges maybe if you're lucky on one harvest crop. Now you'll probably be lucky to get like 2, but sometimes you don't even get 1. That's how big of a difference it is, especially when you don't have the higher tier monsters. So harvest and gearing is definitely the areas in SSF that I think needs the most work. So how is the character even progressing? So for spell suppression, I am using L4 to cap the spell suppress. So this thing has 22%. No spell suppression on the armor piece because we're trying to go for as much armor as possible due to the Juggernaut node. The gloves, we actually did end up rolling 10% spell suppress. And I do have another pair of gloves over here that I'm waiting to annul off a prefix so that I can potentially, well, I can use an Eldritch Orb of Annulment, but it's probably pretty unlikely I ever get any Eldritch currency. But you can get the suppress up a lot more that way. I also anointed Entrench. So Entrench gives you 12% chance to suppress spell damage. So we're pretty much taking all of the stops out to get 100% spell suppression. For the auras, I'm running Determination, Pride, and War Banner. Now, the thing about Pride is I actually swap it out for Summon Skitterbots. And the reason behind that is I think the chill with Unbound Ailments just feels too good. And in order to see how this actually functions is that it gives you around a 17% chill effect, which does cancel out a lot of the haste on the map. So if you actually look at what the Skitterbots looks like, you can see that these mobs have a 17% chill and a 25% shock. And around a 25% shock and 17% chill is not that much less damage at all than Pride at the initial effect. So that's why I'm running a Skitterbots Pride Determination setup with War Banner. Now, for the DPS of the build, we're still having to put down Ancestral War Chief and Ancestral Protector for the damage buffs. And we do have around 5k life, 100% spell suppress, 80k armor. And this pretty much means your character can do all the content. It won't really die outside of Ubers. And it's actually ready for reds, I'm pretty sure. Now, the way you craft the axe is actually kind of interesting to craft. So we actually found an attack speed fracture as my axe. I'm definitely not going to get that lucky in the Gauntlet, but if you have an attack speed fracture, you literally just spam essences until you hit a hybrid. So right here, I think this is a T6 hybrid, which is actually really, really terrible. But we can live with that for now, and then you just craft it on. If you want to make it a little bit better, and you have some divines to spare, you can do prefixes cannot be changed, and try to get the veiled chaos orb and try to hit the veiled prefix. And that's one way of doing it. And if you don't have the suffix attack speed that is fractured, you would do the same exact process, except you would have to reforge speed in order to hit the the attack speed roll, and then you would craft on whatever you wanted, which is usually double damage while focused. So overall, the axe is a pretty easy thing to craft. The jewelry, we're literally just going with life resist. I did actually get lucky on another fracture item. I'm not really sure if this is what gearing is like nowadays, but it seems like you can just get super lucky. So right here is another fracture item. This thing has a lot of chaos res, so maybe I could like replace it here. But we do have some resist problems right now. It's kind of hard to use it, so maybe we'll replace this item over here. But we'll see how it goes. But very, very lucky to get a 75 life fracture. And then for the amulet, we want to get Internal Damnation later, which is the Sanctum item. But for now, it's just some life, some dex, some accuracy rating, and then Fizz Leech as mana. And the boots are the same deal, some more resist. It's actually a lot of resist, and then we crafted on the move speed. And then we actually have Avoid Elemental Ailments, which actually doesn't do anything because we can't actually get 100% ailment immunity. Because we have, well, you have 13%, 15% here, and then you would have 20% here. And then you're still really, really far off. You would have to craft it on a chest. And a chest is a very, well, let's just say you have a lot of stuff you want on the chest. And for the Eldritch Implicits, ideally we want Strike Additional Enemy right here. But kind of hard to get that. And then this one is actually pretty good. +1 max all res, or you can go for increased effective auras. Both are perfectly fine. So overall, the gear is coming along fine. Don't really see what else I can do to change. Ideally, I probably want to get a little bit more accuracy nodes on my gear, and then I can start dropping some points. So if I path out this way, I would get more life, and this would allow me to drop these nodes over here and have around 5k life pretty easily. And Elvor eventually can probably be dropped for a life and suppression item. I'm kind of just using Elvor because I'm trying to get 100% suppress as much as possible. Now, Atlas progression is a lot of people that ask about how is the Atlas progression like in SSF and Gauntlet. So right away, you want to start off by putting points into the June missions. So right here, I decided to go over here. And the reason behind that is you want to try to farm the Devouring Diadem. So you want to get as many white map June missions as possible so that you can run June missions in T3 or below maps. And the reason behind that is that you can do the Katarina safe house and you're guaranteed a 50-50 chance at getting Devouring Diadem. I will make another video about why I think Devouring Diadem is actually one of the most overpowered items currently in existence in PoE. But later on, after you finish the June, you want to go do some expeditions. So I took these expedition nodes here. These ones help over here. Also went up over here to get some essences. And then this one gives you logbooks. And this one duplicates the essences. So when you get Shriekings, you can get 2 of them at once. So your main sources of gear progression are honestly Rog crafting with... Early on, you can find unveiled items from June. Then you can find Rog crafting with Expedition. And then you can use essences once you get enough of it. Now, we want to run Sanctum at T8 maps. The reason behind Sanctum at T8 maps is you can drop the Sanctified Relic. It's a chance to drop. I think even the guards can drop it. And the bosses can also drop it. So you want to just do T8 maps the whole time, if possible, until you get to... Or you can also do it a little bit earlier on, but make sure to kill the boss and have your Sanctum at level 75. I think the way that the Sanctum works is that it averages out the level of the zones or the maps that you save the Sanctum in. Not really 100% sure, but I think it works something like that. So currently my Atlas bonus is at 89, so it's more or less finished. Just a bunch of red maps. Red maps are kind of a chore to try to get corrupted and Vol Orb, so a lot of times you take it and then you Vol Orb it. A craft that I found very useful was sacrificing the maps. This thing right here. And then it allows you to get a new map at the same tier. So this could allow you to use your bricked maps and try to finish up your Atlas that way. So that's another thing you could potentially do. Now, the most aggravating part about SSF, and this is the thing I really wanted to address in this video, was that resetting foothills over and over again for betrayal is the worst experience ever. So we actually go look. Pretty much right now, there's a meta when you reach Act 9, you go into this zone. And the reason why people choose foothills is literally because the button you click on to control click it lines up with the new button right here, right? So you could theoretically do any of the zones, but for the fastest clicking, people just defaulted to foothills. It's also a pretty small zone, so you know like right away what to do or where to go in order to get it. So right now you can't get it because I'm 10 levels above the zone. I think once you're 10 levels above the zone, so once you're above 72, you can no longer spawn any master missions. However, most people right now, the meta in SSF and Gauntlet is to reach here. You spam foothills and you keep doing it until you see that there's a betrayal mission. And then once you do the betrayal mission, you do the betrayal mission, and then you get some, what's it called? Some intelligence, and then eventually you can do Katarina. Now, you can average a Katarina safe house in around 2 hours, I think, is what people told me from doing the foothills farm. And this allows you to have a 50-50 chance at devouring diadem. The reason you want to stay below is because below like the higher levels, I think 73 or something, is because once you get 73, the Katarina can drop more items, so the chance is no longer 50-50. Now, this is actually one of the most unenjoyable experiences ever. Every single time I do a practice run, I think to myself, do I really want to spend 2 to 4 hours here just doing this? And I kid you not, people actually do spend 2 to 4 hours doing this in the Gauntlet. You'll see a lot of people do this, especially if you're playing Spark. SRS also needs the helmet. So many builds benefit from the helmet. Even Bone Shatter could use the helmet, as it could allow you to run Grace. And this is just not a very enjoyable experience, especially if you tell someone what the meta for SSF is. And the meta is to actually just go here and reload the zones over and over again. And it's not like it's a very guaranteed chance. You could go easily 10, 20 zones without seeing the June missions. And it's just a very, very badly designed thing that we as PoE players have pretty much found a way to gimmick. Now, some changes I think they could do to fix it is to make it so that certain crafts are gated by level. So because no one actually enjoys spam refreshing a zone. So a lot of stuff that people like farming is trigger on the weapon. Then you also have like the duration of ailments. Let me see if I actually show you. So some of the crafts are like, some people like the trigger. So trigger ones are pretty good. Oh wait, it's not for the helmet. Let's do all. So this one. This, and then there's also trigger socket spells where you focus, and then there's also physical damage taken as fire damage on Corel, the helmet, and then there's also a body armor one, the Gravicious craft, and then there's a bunch of ones, and then there's also the ailment duration one on the helmet, 60 to 70% increased duration of ailments. So there's a bunch of different, what's it called, crafts that are completely build enabling that people farm for in the foothills. But every single time I do the SSF run, this is the part that turns me off the most. So overall, I do think that the gear progression and honestly the clear speed of Bone Shatter Juggernaut is not too bad. I know a lot of people meme on it and say, oh, Bone Shatter is really, really bad for mapping or whatever. And I honestly do not really notice that much of a difference. Of course, we're doing white maps, but just to show you what like the mapping actually looks like. Now, the mapping is not exactly the fastest in the world, but let's just say it gets the job done. So right now we're running Skitterball. So the Bone Shatter definitely benefits a lot more in narrow layout maps. So you don't need to run super far because you're still a melee build. But whenever there's a lot of mobs nearby, the Bone Shatter will take care of it. So even like the rares will die pretty fast even. And that's my favorite part of the build, is that the mapping feels like you just don't really have that much DPS problems for clear. If anything, the biggest problem is always going to be single target. And this is still on a 5-link with a pretty mediocre act, honestly. But every single time you reach a rare, though, you do have to put down your totems to kill it fast. But the packs actually just evaporate. So that's pretty much a little bit of a demonstration of Bone Shatter. Now, you might seem bad compared to softcore builds, but this is pretty top of the notch, honestly, for Gauntlet. Now, I don't even know if I want to show the boss. So the boss might take a while. So let's just get out of that map. But that's pretty much what the character looks like, even in red maps. And I do think that Sanctum is really, really fun when your character can't do it that easily. It's fun finding the relics and trying to hope for, is this the relic that will save my life? And in the end, it does seem like the relics that make the most difference are the ones that get inspiration when you gain an affliction. So make sure you can also 5-1 the relics if you get a lot of shitty ones. But that's pretty much it. Overall, I don't think I'll be able to finish the practice run. I've just had too much real life stuff going on, in and out of the hospital a lot. But just wanted to give a quick update on the character. Did get to nearly level 92, and I really enjoy it, and I really like how durable Juggernaut feels. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below if you actually enjoy doing the foothill farms and if I'm just crazy. But thanks for watching. I hope you find more mirrors and divines than me, and see you next time. Bye!